Mavens Show, a fantastic fusion of health, wealth, and wisdom that will ignite your passion for life. I'm Aldwyn Altuney, also known as the Media Queen from Australia.
And I'm Kerstin Linnartz from Germany. We are here to take you on a journey of inspiration to help you grow in life and business and unlock your true potential.
With a combined 70 years of media experience, we share stories, insights, and expert advice that will empower you in all areas of your life.
The Media Mavens Show is not just another show. It's a candid look for answers to the big questions in life and a movement towards a better, brighter future.
This show transcends borders. We're connecting people and cultures globally.
So whether you're watching us online or listening to our podcast, buckle up to be inspired, informed, and ready to conquer the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I always love how you're dancing with our trailer, Aldwyn. Welcome to episode number 9 of the Media Mavens Show. Can't believe it's episode number 9 and we have another very special guest that we're welcoming today. Welcome, Michelle Rowlinson. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, so let me introduce Michelle to you. She is a dedicated menopause well-being practitioner and a best-selling author. Love her book, You, Me, Conquering Perimenopause and Menopause. She actually comes from her own very interesting history. So everything she's sharing is coming out of her own experience. She's a best-selling author specializing in enhancing awareness and support for menopause for individuals, organization, and health professionals alike. And today we are going to talk about a topic that actually affects half of this planet's population. Every single woman, sooner or later, goes through menopause, and it is incredible, unbelievable, and unacceptable, in my opinion, how little is known about perimenopause and menopause. Let's change that today with the help of Michelle. So Michelle, first of all, run us through your own experience. We've had chats about that. I know a little bit about your history, which is outrageous, actually, the things that you had to go through with doctors, with practitioners. Run us a little bit through, how did you end up writing this book and becoming so passionate about sharing knowledge about perimenopause and menopause?
Yeah, so I was 32 when it really started to sort of become obvious things were happening that I just didn't know what was going on. I was working as a senior physiotherapist at a private clinic, and I'd always been a slim person. I loved cooking. I loved going to the gym. First thing was that the weight just started piling on, and I just couldn't understand why. I was in the gym all the time, and I was eating healthily, and then I started getting the worst sort of acne, worse than when I was a teenager. My hair was falling out, literally clumps of it was falling out where the Hoover in the shower drain was always blocked. And I started to sort of avoid going out because I absolutely was so embarrassed of my appearance now. I started to sort of get anxiety sort of over that, but equally sort of brain fog and memory loss, to the point where I would actually look at my diary, get to the waiting room, and I couldn't remember my patient's name, and I'd have to make excuses with the receptionist, or I just need to check something. And she must have thought I was mad because I had my own computer upstairs that I could have checked whatever I needed to check. And I was going to the doctor for countless other things. I'd gone from never going to the doctor to suddenly heart palpitations, anxiety attacks, insomnia, the list goes on. And I seriously thought I had dementia. I thought I had the onset of dementia. I thought, I had all these worries going around about, is this a progressive thing? Nobody was giving me answers. My cardiologist tried to put me on beta blockers. My dentist, because I started getting gum issues and nearly lost a tooth, and I had just got a lecture on oral hygiene. no mention from any of these professionals that it could be hormonal. And it wasn't until I had the worst anxiety attack ever over in the supermarket over whether I was getting the wrong cereal. And I had to leave. I literally left my shopping and I just sat in the car, tears rolling down my face. I could barely breathe with my heart pounding so much. And I was like, no, this is not just depression that the doctor kept telling me that I was just stressed. I was just depressed. Here's some antidepressants. And I was like, it's more than this. So I sort of did my own research. And that's when I came across the word perimenopause that I'd never heard of. I knew about menopause like most of us. I just assumed it was hot flashes, mood swings, no periods, job done. Never heard of peri, but it was such a relief to go, oh my God, it's something. It's not progressive, it's not dementia. And then I sort of did, at the more research I did, I then found some diets that massively reduced my symptoms and realised that it is a thing, but we're just not told. So that's what led to my book, which is full of recipes and advice on these diets that can hugely reduce symptoms, as well as other medical conditions, because they reduce the inflammation in the body. But that then spiraled into realising how failed women are globally, and that's what led me to where I am now, to sort of try and help women in the workplace, because 1 in 4 women lose or leave their job, and I was one of them. I just didn't feel good enough. I thought, I was getting paranoid that, oh my God, if it's dementia, what if I do something wrong? So yeah, it was really debilitating.
It's incredible. And yeah, Aldwyn, you were going to say something, right?
Yeah, well, we've got Shell here. Hello, we've got beautiful Shell. She said she gets what you're saying. She says, me too, I was so bad. She has something that works now. I know does a lot of natural products to help with this. Shell, we just hung out together on the weekend down in Sydney, and she said they never told her either about this. And I know a lot of people who've had menopause have had similar issues. And I find it interesting that the word menopause has the word men and pause in that word, as in pausing men around menopause. And I find that very interesting, because I've just hit 50 myself, and I feel like I just really don't need men in my life anymore like I did in my 40s. It's quite an interesting thing. I don't know if that's common once you hit 50, whether that's the way it goes for a lot of women. But I do know that a lot of people have said when they get to 50 that they feel a new level of empowerment as a woman, which is interesting around this menopause stage. And I have heard also, there was a lady I saw many years ago who I interviewed as a journalist about 20 years ago, a lady called Cheryl Selman, and she had a book called Hormone Heresy, and she was talking about the dangers of hormone replacement therapy and the side effects that can happen. And that's what a lot of doctors seem to push the HRTs on women. And I'm very curious what you think about HRTs, if you know much about that, the hormone replacement therapy, and if you know about these side effects she was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of mess, there's a lot of controversy over HRT. A lot of the sort of the views, and even then it's sort of a small risk, but it's the oral, old-fashioned synthetic HRT that does have some small risks with blood clots. Like with any pill you take, obviously it goes through the liver. So if you've got any liver conditions, you shouldn't be taking them. Equally, if you're diabetic or obese or high blood pressure. But these are all the oral versions. The excuse me, the body identical transdermal through your skin has minimal risks. And as with anything, when you first start taking them, you can get some side effects while your body's getting used to them, but they should subside within a few months. So things like breast pain, nausea, there's quite a few that, as when you first start taking sort of anything, but ordinarily they should sort of start to ease within this, the next sort of a couple of months.
And
yeah, there'll always be side effects, I think, whenever you take anything, right, that's pharmaceutical in some way. I think
the difference with the body identicals is that the body, that is exactly that. The body treats the same as our own hormones. So it's more like just saying, you know, replacing something that we're losing, as opposed to the synthetic progestins or estrogen. So it's much more natural, the body identical transdermal ones.
Right.
But it's interesting when you say about relationships, because 48 when surveyed, 48% of women said that it has impacted or had a negative impact on their relationships. And actually it's more common for women to not necessarily end the relationships themselves, but for relationships to end in their 40s, 50s, which I don't think is a coincidence to being sort of hormonal, because like you say, one, it can impact us with symptoms, but two, it's almost like our brain recalibrates and we sort of become stronger. And sometimes I think things we might have put up with before, we don't, or so it can have a very empowering impact, menopause, as well as obviously that we talk about the negatives, but there are lots of positives to menopause as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely want to address that in a minute. I just want to go back to the substances or treatments. There are the chemical ones, there are the body related ones. What's your take on the naturopath aspect on that? Like when I started entering my perimenopause, which I didn't know anything about as well, you know, my doctor suggested me taking hormones, and I said I want to avoid it as long as possible. Only after research and only after coming across a very good audio book called Woman on Fire, I learned about perimenopause. I didn't know a thing like that existed, and I started researching into natural remedies, and I actually found two products, a combination of different herbs and natural remedies. One is against the anxiety attacks, against the mood swings, and the other one against the hot flushes. I've been working with them for 3 years. I'm 47 now. It started like beginning mid-40s, and I've not had any symptoms ever since. So what's your take on those natural remedies? Do you think that can be, and they're a helpful step maybe before the hormones?
Well, the thing is that studies have shown by taking HRT early perimenopause, so sort of within the first 18 months of starting perimenopause, there are lots of long-term benefits. So towards reducing the risk of cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, and even though there's more studies needed in dementia, which women are more, it's more common for women than men for dementia. And it makes sense if estrogen has a lot to do with our brain function and supporting lots of things, neurotransmitters and things to the brain. It makes sense why we're more predisposed to dementia than men. However, even if women choose or they are candidates to have HRT, I always advocate you need a more rounded, holistic approach anyway. It's not just a magic, a magic patch, a magic gel. You need to be looking at your diet, at your, lifestyle, because definitely, there are some women, although there's more studies with the transdermal that needs to be done, but for women that have had breast cancer that are not advised to have HRT, there's definitely lots that you can do to reduce symptoms as well. Definitely, out there. So it is just sort of looking at a more holistic approach. There's things like acupuncture and reflexology that's proven to help reduce hot flushes, anxiety. And as I say, there's sort of certain anti-inflammatory diets, but equally looking into, asking the doctor to test your vitamin levels, because, many of us, men and women, are deficient in, many vitamins now because we don't get it from the food as much like we used to because of the way, it's now produced. And if you have a deficiency in magnesium, in iron, in calcium, vitamin D, these can actually give you similar symptoms to perimenopause as well. So it's trying to make sure that you've looked at the bigger picture, you've ruled other things out as well. And then having, and that's what I do. I don't tell anybody what to do. I sort of educate them so they can make their own informed decisions. And say, yes, I'd like to try this or this, and sort of going through sort of the benefits. But there's definitely long-term benefits to sort of the transdermal HRTs, as well as sort of taking these extra supplements and natural remedies as well.
Exactly. And I love how you mentioned the word holistic, because we are more dimensional beings. This is, you know, what I'm giving my clients all the time, you know, look at all 5 dimensions of your life. And I like one of our viewers, Fiona Jeff, she's saying, diet can play a huge part in how you transition through it. Eliminating alcohol is one of the best things to reduce hot flashes. I found evening primrose a very beneficial as well. And actually reducing alcohol, I know it's unsexy. I know we all like a glass of wine in the evening. And I know no one wants to sacrifice anything. But I've stopped drinking alcohol almost completely a few years ago. And amen to that, Fiona, no more hot flashes, right? And it's so important to provide that holistic approach. As you say, education comes first and then implementation needs to follow. So people need to look at, what is my lifestyle looking like? Where do I have stress factors that might be adding to the symptoms that I have? What can I leave out? What practices might help me? And the cancer patients that you've been mentioning, I've seen that in many of my ladies with breast cancer that I've been supporting, who cannot take the hormones during the chemotherapy or afterwards. They do very, very well with a holistic approach of herbal remedies, of breathing techniques, of meditation techniques. Yeah. Just knowing, when somebody has read your book and a woman knows, okay, I'm getting a hot flush, not because I'm nervous or, you know, I have mental health issues, but it's my perimenopause, even at such a young age, like 32, where we don't expect the menopausal symptoms, but just the education and then the implementation on not working against it, but to soothe it, takes so much stress out of the woman itself, which already in itself reduces the symptoms. And it's a vicious circle, you know, a positive circle upwards, an upward spiral. What's your experience here?
Yeah, because I mean, if we're in a constant state of stress, the body will prioritize our stress hormones over our sex hormones. So this again can then add to things like estrogen dominance, which isn't a condition as such, but it's an umbrella term to describe an imbalance between progesterone and estrogen. So doing definitely things that I teach are breath work, meditation, that you can literally reduce your cortisol within seconds of just, you know, deep breathing, and doesn't take very long. Like Fiona said, you know, our gut is connected to basically everything. And actually, if we haven't got good gut health and we haven't got good digestion, and estrogen sits in the gut prolonged, we can actually reabsorb detoxified estrogen, which then can contribute to estrogen excess because we're reabsorbing it. So there's lots of different, you know, things to think about. Estrogen dominance also is often linked with histamine intolerance. So women may start suddenly get allergies or intolerances that they've never had before. So this can again be another sign that our hormones are out of whack, because histamine, interestingly, attaches to the same receptors as our estrogen. So often if our estrogen is high, then more histamine will be released into the bloodstream, and then the more histamine, the more estrogen. It becomes a bit of a vicious cycle. So again, there are foods that we can eat that actually have diamine oxidase, the enzyme that breaks down histamines, like bean sprouts, broccoli. So diet, again, you know, really does help, no matter whether you're taking HRT or not.
In your book, you're mentioning the keto diet. That's something, for example, that I'm in my head is very strongly linked to fitness people who work out, who go to the gym, who want to maybe lose weight, put on more strength. How is that linked to the whole menopausal topic?
Well, because estrogen has a lot to do with inflammation. So as our estrogen is declining, our body, we can end up being have more inflammation. So keto or Mediterranean diet, I also mentioned, with these are anti-inflammatory diets, so they can help reduce the inflammation, and again help with other symptoms like joint pain, joint inflammation, that women are more predisposed during menopause as well. So it really can help with lots of other conditions as well as menopause, but definitely helped reduce lots and lots of my symptoms.
We've got Fiona here saying she took St. John's wort also to help with the mood swings. Thank you for that, Fiona. And Shell has something also that works, and she said she can send information there as well. So thank you for all these comments of everyone coming on live here. Really appreciate it. We've got people here on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, X, Instagram, YouTube. And on Instagram, we have Jody here. We have Najee. Glyn is on the Goldie. Robert's there. Leroy. Wayne. Hello. Welcome. If you have any questions at all about perimenopause, then please pop them into the chat. And I've just done a little Google actually here about perimenopause, because I didn't know about this either. I just thought it was menopause and that was it. And what it says on Google, and please, Michelle, say if you don't agree with this or if you think it's something slightly different. It says it's a time around menopause when your ovaries gradually stop working. It says it's a natural process that causes physical and emotional symptoms. It says it does not need treatment, but treatment can help to lessen the symptoms. And treatment, they're saying, includes hormones, antidepressants, which I wouldn't agree with, antidepressants. No. Says that here, and it says lifestyle changes, and it says the symptoms that people get here on Google. This is where don't always believe everything you see on Google. It says you get period changes, you get hot flushes and night sweats, you get mood changes, you get vaginal dryness, you get, this is obviously done by a guy, you get sleep problems, and you get weight changes. So that's what it says on Google. Now, what do you agree or disagree with from that, Michelle?
Basically, perimenopause is the transitional phase leading up to menopause. So it's when your body is actually preparing for it. So yes, and it's not always the first sign, or it can be really subtle where our periods are changing. But we often think they become less and less frequent. Actually, they can become heavier and more frequent. So, but sometimes they can be minimal changes, or we might have them in a coil. So, we might not even be having periods to be able to know that whether there's something going on there. Antidepressants shouldn't be the first line of treatment, because they don't treat hormonal depression or low mood. They only treat clinical depression. So they do have their place for certain women if they have a history of depression, because hormone fluctuations can actually exacerbate anything that's kind of already going on. So you might find that you've been managing pretty well how you are, but then suddenly your depression has got worse, which is why often doctors are upping the meds, and women are going, my meds have been upped, but I'm not feeling any improvement. And it's because it's a hormonal reason that you're actually feeling low rather than a clinical. And yes, because estrogen has a lot to do with metabolism and body composition, so women may find that they start to put on weight, and it could, like with myself, I all around my middle, to the point where my son admitted that his friend's mum thought I was pregnant, because it went on so quickly around my middle. But yeah, and it's learning that actually you want to be doing low to moderate intense exercise, not high intense, because you don't want to raise your cortisol, which is what I was doing. I had a lot of stress going on at the time, so I was already high levels of cortisol, but the weight still kept piling on. So I agree with some. I don't agree that antidepressants should be the first line. You should go by symptoms. And even the NICE guidelines, state that you go by symptoms once everything else has been ruled out. So unfortunately, it does say 45 plus that you don't need to have a blood test, but obviously, so because our hormones are fluctuating, many women can often end up with hormone tests coming back as fine, but they've got raging symptoms. And that's where they can be inaccurate, because our hormone levels can change by the hour, let alone by the day or the week. So it's ruling other things out and then having that conversation of going, do you know what, could we trial, HRT or try different diets, to see whether they help.
And I know one of the biggest side effects of antidepressants is suicide, which is very concerning for people who have suicidal tendencies. They give them antidepressants, and a lot of them end up killing themselves. So that's something to be aware of too. A lot, we're in a time now where a lot of people think they'll just take the pill and everything will be fine. Whereas really, if we can do things, I believe, more naturally, like they did for thousands of years before pharmaceuticals came out 200 years ago or so, there was natural remedies. And I know Fiona's right into natural remedies, and she's saying here, mine became very heavy and irregular. Period she's talking about. It was like being a teenager again, which is what alerted me to the fact the circle was about to complete. Once you're over 40, doing cardio makes you store fat. HIIT, HIIT, is the way to go for fat burning, she says. Thank you for that, Fiona. I must say I'm preferring more of the yoga nowadays, less of the high intensity and more of the chilled out yoga, meditation, that kind of thing's working for me.
Exactly. And that's what I promote, things like yoga, Pilates, rather swimming, rather than sort of high intense. But yeah, and you're right, the suicide rate in women is more prevalent age 45 to 55. And I don't think that's, a coincidence that it's a hormonal age. And I do describe menopause as puberty in reverse, or perimenopause as puberty in reverse, because rather than our hormones rising up, they're sort of going down, which is why, again, a lot of women tend to clash with their teenage daughters, because you're kind of going through the same thing at the same time, or why many relationships might, sort of break down, because again, you've got the woman with hormones raging and mood swings, teenage daughter, and the whole dynamics of the household is just sort of, quite emotional and hard to sort of deal with sometimes. So, or affecting them at work if they're, sort of being snappy with colleagues or bosses, or, not being able to be as productive at work. So it affects women in all areas of their life, whether that's family, friends, work. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're touching 2 points here that I'd like to address. Sorry. The career, the work, I've seen that in my circle of friends and clients, women whose careers strongly got affected during the menopause or perimenopause. I had a woman who was a high-ranking CEO of a large international company, and when she got hit by menopause, like quite abruptly, there wasn't like a big announcement. All of a sudden, she had those hot flushes, and she's a very light person by her skin tone. She's a natural blonde, right? And when she gets hot flushes, she turns literally pink. And she was sharing with me that in important presentations, she got hot flushes, and she was so embarrassed because she's from a generation where we're not taught on how to speak up about having our menopause. And she was, for more than 6 months, she was suffering in presentations, being so embarrassed, getting hot flushes, being made fun of, being bullied by male colleagues, that it actually harmed her career. She didn't go to the office for several months. And, I trained her in becoming bluntly, impertinently honest about it. I said, next time you're having a hot flush during a presentation, what you're going to do is you're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm 54 now and I'm having a freaking hot flush. Just give me a minute and bear with my pink face, bear with me sweating. What's the point? And I think this is a very important thing. That's why I love the work you do. We need to encourage women to very naturally, it doesn't even have to be brave to speak about it. It's one of the most natural things, like a man getting bold. Which man is embarrassed about losing his hair? Which man feels embarrassed because he's not so potent any longer when he's holding a presentation? They're not being shamed with that. And I think it's important that women learn to deal with this naturally. Is this something that you help women as well? Maybe even in your group,
Yeah, definitely. So I do menopause awareness workshops for businesses, and I've had some phenomenal, feedback from members that I've done the workshops for, because it's important for men to understand just as much. So I do encourage that the male staff sit in and learn about it, because it affects all of us, whether it affects the entire population, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether that's their mother, their sister, their aunt, their colleague, their partner. You know, they are going to come into contact with women who are going through menopause. And it's important that women, like as you say, can talk about it, because absenteeism costs businesses thousands upon thousands. Re-recruitment costs businesses thousands upon thousands, because they're often senior roles that they're then having to suddenly retrain, re-recruit, all because they didn't have adequate education and understanding within the workplace. They didn't have the right policies or adaptations to help accommodate women to be able to thrive in the workplace. And, you know, I get asked often, well, why is this suddenly a thing? Why is it suddenly we're talking about it? Well, for one, we're living longer. You know, women, we used to, you know, die in our, 50s, 60s. Now we're living, 80s, 90s, even hundreds. So firstly, we're living longer. Secondly, women didn't used to work on our grandparents' generation, or at least not as much as what we are now, where women are dominant roles in workforces now, senior roles. So it is affecting women more. Also, retirement age is going up and up and up and up and up. So obviously we're having to work longer and longer as well. And our diet and lifestyle is not what it used to be, back again, our grandparents' generation and beyond, where we're eating much more processed food, which is inflammatory food. So that will increase our inflammation. We're not cooking from fresh as much as we used to. We're not as active as we used to, because we're all sat on computers, on Zooms, on not really moving like we used to, whereas we used to have much more physical jobs. And moving helps with our gut health, helps with our mood, so again, it will help with a lot of symptoms. So that's why in general, we're sort of experiencing it more than we used to. However, I will just point out, obviously, this isn't a new thing, because women were put in asylums for menopausal symptoms. So it's not that it's just a sudden new thing. It's just that now women are feeling like they can talk about it without the fear of being, put in an asylum or stigmatized or lose their job, because now we're sort of putting policies in and legislations that you can't just suddenly, make a woman redundant just because of menopause symptoms.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, when you look at, women being put into asylums, because, they call it hystery. When they had the mood swings, she's hysterical, let's put her away. It's just outrageous. And I love how you're touching the retirement age. In Germany right now, they put it up to 63, I think it is, 63 or 65. They keep putting it up.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it's something like that, mid-60s, and for sure it's going to go up further. And on the other hand, almost all industries are complaining about not having enough well-educated employees. They don't have enough seniors who can teach the juniors how to work. More and more of the juniors don't want to really work. And this is something that I think also comes down to education, like you're doing in the companies, right? How to keep the seniors, the experienced women, not to make it cozy and comfortable. We're not, asking for open a wellness spa within the company, but accepting it and not making it even harder to go through this phase. Would you agree?
Yeah, because there's lots that we can do in the workplace. And as I said, I've teamed up with Mindset HR, so they can come in and help with the policies side of things and hold them accountable. But definitely it's being, it's okay and actually more productive to have a 2-minute, 5-minute break, to do some breath work, get some fresh air, to be able to have fans or heaters, because it's not just hot flushes. A lot of women, and I was one of them more so on the cold side, where, I was permanently cold, and which is more common than you think. Or if you know that you're more productive of a certain time of the month, doing the things that involve more brain power and needing more focus on those times of the month, and then doing the other tasks at the other end when you don't need quite so much concentration. So having that conversation with your manager or with your boss about, okay, is it okay, these targets will, or try and make sure targets are around a certain time of the month, or flexi working, where if it's just admin and you really don't need to be in, and it's that's when you're likely to be flooding, or because for some women, they literally can't leave the house. I know at least just a few friends alone where for a few days they literally can't leave the house because no amount of sanitary towels and tampons will stop them from leaking. And it's it's really embarrassing. And because especially if they're irregular, then you don't even know when it's coming. So you can't even be, obviously you can be prepared and have things to hand. But if you just suddenly go, oh God, I think, now I need to run off, and, so it's just being able to have those conversations of, you might need more toilet breaks, or you might need, so reasonable, and it's not like, as you say, you're not asking to put a spa in and and make the men do all the work. We're happy to, still do our jobs, but it's just being able to tweak things so that you're more productive, which will save the company, lots of money in the long run.
Exactly. And taking the shame out of the whole topic, because again, it is a absolutely 100% natural occurrence in every woman's life. Like Shell was also saying earlier on in her comment, I really thought I was going mad and I was alone living this. So it's nice to know it's normal. And taking out the shame out of the topic, it takes away the necessity for a woman to hide, when she knows that I'm safe in speaking up. I can say, okay, I'm having a hot flash. I love how Fiona was saying, having a fan in your bag. Why not doing a presentation with a freaking fan in your face? It doesn't matter. As long as you get the job done, as long as you get the information across, or calling in ill because your bleeding is just so strong that day that you cannot sit on the desk without pain, or it's just so strong, like you were saying, for some women, that you can't stop it, and there's no need to stop it. Go home, lay on the couch, take your laptop with you and work from home office. Those things should become normal. And I think very, very few women are going to take advantage of it and abuse such opportunities that a company provides, no?
Exactly, because many women do lie about why they're calling in sick, because even though things are getting better, there's still an awful lot of stigma, lack of awareness and inadequate support at this time. But we are definitely heading in the right direction. But yeah, definitely it's having those conversations, having that support network, having something else that I provide is menopause champion training, because it's one thing for me to provide education for the staff, but then where do they go to when they are having these questions, when they are having these problems? So it's having somebody that they can go to and confide in and say, oh, I'm really struggling with such and such, or so that they don't feel like they have to lie or isolate it, which is often what happens, or feel like they have to perhaps just change their job so they're not in quite a high impact role, so that they don't have to worry about these things. Which then obviously means that then the companies have then got to find more senior trained staff, so we become in a bit of a vicious cycle.
Yes.
Yeah, the fact is, as we get older, our bodies are going to change, right? Male or female. And, a lot of guys are actually getting hair transplants, guys that don't like the fact that they're going bald, they're getting these hair transplants. And I know someone actually from Sydney who went to Turkey. It's a place in Turkey that does this, and it's quite phenomenal what can be done now with that. However, even when a lot of people are well before menopause, there's people that are getting all sorts of plastic surgery to change their noses and their lips and their faces and their, so I think, a great way to find joy and bliss in life is to accept the changes that happen, the things that happen that we cannot change. And with all that plastic surgery, I mean, I worry about side effects of all those things, of changing your face and cutting things up. And I mean, I not to mention for a lot of people, they end up looking like pufferfish when they get their lips done and everything. They just don't look kind of human. They look like almost like something from outer space, and all the Botox and all of that stuff. So I think, I think it's important to embrace and accept ourselves exactly as we are, however our body is changing, and find the best ways to deal with it. Now, Fiona mentioned the fan, right? It's interesting because I've got this little fan that I bought that I have right near my desk. And so when I feel, because I've actually had a few hot flushes I've noticed have come on. And I have this little fan. So there's the physical fan you can carry around, but there's also these little cool things that you can charge up, and you can just sort of, have those around the place, which is really cool too. So I think all these little things really help. And Fiona says here, menstrual cups with period undies were a big help as well. So period undies are those undies with the extra padding that she wished she discovered earlier. And so knowing about these things, you can go and, source these things that will help make the whole experience a bit more comfortable for you, perhaps. However, also realizing our bodies do change as we get older. And, people tend to eat less as they get older too, because you don't need as much food either, because our body's not digesting like it digested 10 years ago. We don't have the same kind of metabolism either. And so through that, whatever's going to work for you, she says here too, Fiona, about that our bodies change. She goes about having balance. She says here, having balance, because older people start to lose muscle mass, which becomes a problem later in life. And so that's where,
yes, there's an element of, yes, we definitely need to accept more. I don't think the media helps with, filters and everything. But it's also understanding there are things you can do naturally to help. So yes, we're more predisposed to losing muscle mass, but that's not to say we can't build up muscle by doing, low intense, but weight training, resistance training. Equally, we're often told that, it's just a sign of getting older and put up with it with incontinence. Now, unless you have a medical condition that involves surgery or something specific going on, usually after having a baby or something like that, where you need intervention, it's never too late to start strengthening your pelvic floor. So, and this is something that many women go to their doctor and they go, well, just use Tenor Lady. Great, thanks. It's just the sign of getting old, not, actually, yes, by doing Pilates, where that helps strengthen your joints and your core, and by doing pelvic floor exercises, you can help to sort of strengthen your muscles, to help with your bone health, to help with your, incontinence type exercises. So yeah, there's lots that we can do that we're not told about, but definitely there is an element of accepting that, yes, we are going to get wrinkles as we get older, and sometimes I think it's, as you say, if it's sort of before perimenopause, I think there's a lot of the social media aspect to why, you're seeing, yes, I need bigger lips, or yes, and it's more sort of looking into ourselves as opposed to the aging factor, because I think definitely women do get more affected by wanting to sort of fit in with societal models.
Yeah. And people are generally living longer. I was just looking up what Kerstin was saying about the retirement age. I just looked that up. In the UK and Germany, it's actually 66, and in Australia, it's 66.
Wow, incredible. Yeah. And imagine, I mean, and I'm convinced they're going to push it up to 70, which is okay if a woman is fine. I'm going to work till I die literally because I love my work, you know. It's not just doing it for the money, but there's other situations, of course. But for sure, they're going to push it up more and more and more. That's why I absolutely want to touch on what you were saying before, Michelle, and also Aldwyn. Yes, on the one hand, accepting the changes and becoming at peace and embracing the way our body changes as we age after giving birth. Like, my body has absolutely changed after having my daughter, but there's all these tiny little things, and this is something that I absolutely advocate, that you can put into your everyday life, no matter how full your schedule is. Coming to the example of the pelvic floor exercises, there's something in yoga. Everybody listening and watching, Google Kapalabhati and Mula Bandha. It's a breathing exercise and a pelvic floor exercise. I've been doing this thing for 30 years, and I've got the pelvic floor of a 15-year-old, literally, you know, after giving birth and being 47, and my body getting softer through perimenopause. And you can even implement that into your workday. You can literally do those exercises while you're sitting on the desk. And in turn, this is like reverse engineering your mental health as well, because when you do those things, when you're not scared of peeing your pants every time you sneeze, you become more confident and you feel better about yourself, and it's easier to accept all the other things that you might not be able to change, like putting on a little bit more belly fat or your breast changing after breastfeeding, whatever it is. So this is something that I strongly want to underline, and that's again why I love the work that you're taking into the companies, into the individuals, addressing the nutrition, the physical workouts, all of that. There's so many things that we can absolutely implement into our everyday life to make the transitions more comfortable, easier, and make us more confident and put us into a frequency where it's easier for us to accept that and to not fight it. You know, I keep repeating that. I never use the word hate, but I hate the word anti-aging. When you say anti-aging, it's like anti-life, because we're all aging, and it's about aging gracefully and healthy and health, you know, in a community. Tell us a little bit more about what's happening inside your support group. What are you sharing with the women there?
Yeah, so as I say, we sort of share stories, experiences. I love it how we get a lot of, you know, light bulb moments, especially when I was sort of talking about like my teeth. And then one lady, this was last year, and she was like, oh my God, yes, my teeth have started to become wobbly and I've nearly lost one, and didn't realize that this could be menopause. And I was like, well, if you think about it, in the UK, we get free dental treatment when we're pregnant because hormones make you more susceptible to losing your teeth with gum issues, gum inflammation. It's the same hormones, which was why it made me laugh when, you know, my dentist was, you know, giving me a lecture on oral hygiene when I was spending money to, like, you know, stop my teeth falling out. I was like, I think I would have addressed that before spending all this money. You know, I think I know that my oral hygiene is pretty good, thanks. I haven't changed anything. It's just suddenly started. And it was interesting. I think Aldwyn, you said something earlier about obviously puberty and pregnancy. That's why many women actually end up getting similar symptoms in perimenopause as when they were pregnant. You know, like swollen feet, gum issues. But, you know, because it is the same hormones that, you know, are being affected.
Yeah, and you're addressing the I find that interesting how you've been mentioning your dentist, you've been mentioning other doctors as well, where nobody could help you really, and nobody, you know, found out what the issue was at the young age of 32. And that was the second thing actually I wanted to address, because at least in Germany, I've got many friends who are doctors and practitioners, and I was shocked when I learned that they even get some type of reward or like an affiliate reward program when prescribing particular meds, right? So like a friend, she's a high ranking doctor in a clinic, and she said, well, the pharmaceutical companies, they actually come and we can enter this affiliate program. When we prescribe certain medicines, we get given a wellness weekend at a 5-star hotel. And I could not believe my ears hearing that. So, you know, I'm a very strong advocate. Obviously, I've got this yoga background. I've been studying Ayurveda, living in India for 7 years. I've healed my own burnout, all of those things without any chemical meds. So I actually know what can be done with natural remedies, with your own power of your mind, with breathing, meditation, all of that. Nevertheless, I would never recommend a cancer patients don't do chemo, but I think it always should be a holistic approach, not either or, but both. Yes. And I know that you also offer education for practitioners. What is your experience? Obviously, many practitioners are not educated well enough, which is down to the universal system. When they're studying medicine, they don't touch the topic of menopause, which affects, again, 50% of the population of this planet. What do you think can or should be done to educate doctors to at least consider that this might be the issue before prescribing chemical meds to a woman who comes with any symptoms?
Yeah. So in February, I was very excited. I got to train my first trainee GP cohort of trainee GPs. And it was really interesting that I sort of started, rather than introducing myself, I just started with a case study, which I didn't tell them was me, and got them to discuss. I said, I know we're here for menopause, but, you know, discuss what conditions you would be wanting to rule out, da, 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 da. And it was really interesting. It was really nice that many of them, there was one particular, and she put her hand up and she went, I know we're here for menopause, so I know that case study is going to be menopause. She goes, but I'd put 35 struggling with symptoms with 3 years at that point. And she went, I wouldn't ever consider menopause at that age. She went, it wouldn't even be on my radar. She went, and she admitted, because part of my workshops, I also say what conditions are often misdiagnosed or can be exacerbated. And she fully admitted that the likelihood of, you know, fibromyalgia might be a what they would diagnose, because there's nothing else to rule, you know, there's no test specifically for fibro. And yet, if you've ruled everything else out and you've got a 32-year-old, you know, okay, so that's usually when women then get labeled either with fibro or depression, or, and not to say that fibromyalgia isn't a thing. I've got many, you know, I've got friends that have generally got it, but I do think there are a certain percentage that are misdiagnosed with fibromyalgia. And the problem is, once you've got that diagnosis, or any condition really, whether that's thyroid, fibro, or anything like that, it's almost as if they forget that we're a woman. So when, and again, these are the ones that, even if you have got those conditions, menopause can then exacerbate the symptoms. But then they go into their doctors saying, well, I've managed my fibromyalgia, but now it's worse, or I've managed my depression and now it's worse, or my thyroid, or anything like that. And they're going, oh, it's just, yeah, we'll just up your meds. Not, oh, actually hormones could be exacerbating it. Let's look at the bigger picture. So I think there's a lot of problems with that, because doctors in general, unless they specifically want to, they get like an hour's training, you know, in women's health. As a physio, I even chose to do a women's health elective when I was a student, because I realized there was a big gap in knowledge when I was a student. And on one of my placements, there was a woman with diabetic recti, where the muscle sort of come apart during pregnancy. And my supervisor was like, oh, there's nothing that can be done for pregnant women until they've had the baby, just send her on her way. And I was like, can't be right. But even when I did the elective, it was all about prolapses and pregnancy and pelvic floor. I actually didn't get told anything about menopause. And as a physio, I look back and I remember, yeah, many women frozen shoulder tendon. I knew that they were more predisposed. So yes, we get taught middle-aged women and up are more predisposed to these conditions, but I didn't realize it was down to menopause. And I actually remember, you know, specifically some women saying, oh, I feel like I'm falling apart, you know, this hurts, that hurts, this, that, oh, I'm having, and if we'd got an even better rapport, they'd start telling me about other symptoms. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, what I did really helped treat their symptoms of tendinopathy or whatever it was that they were coming in for, but I wasn't treating the cause. Again, even opticians, I went last year to see my optician with dry, gritty eyes. I knew it was peri, but my mum has glaucoma, so as I would tell any woman, always get things ruled out first. So I went just to get make sure there wasn't anything going on with my eyes. And she was like, oh yeah, it's dry, gritty eye, da da da. And I was like, oh, so it's perimenopause then? And she was like, peri what? And she not only went, yes, I get lots of women middle-aged up with dry eye, she actually realized that she was perimenopausal. I'd ended up asking about my book. So, you know, so it literally is any health professional with women should have menopause training. And that's what this course that's CPD certified that I'm now launching, that I think every health professional should do, to have that basic knowledge of, one, to learn about themselves as well, if they're a woman or if they've got a partner or colleagues. So that there's an element of how it affects you at work as well. But also, again, all the holistic ways of treating menopause, whether that's through the HRTs, whether that's through diet, whether that's through lifestyle or alternative therapies. I think, you know, we need to have that knowledge.
Yeah, I think it shouldn't. Sorry, I think it should be an obligation, no, for any practitioner. Yeah. Sorry, Aldwyn.
Yeah, well, this lady, Cheryl Selman, I saw years ago, she was also talking about side effects of the pill. And I actually know someone whose liver became 3 times its normal size as a side effect of the pill that she'd taken for 20 years. She'd taken the pill. In fact, she was getting the pill injected, and her liver went 3 times the size, and she basically had to get 2/3 of her liver cut out because of a side effect of the pill. So what are your thoughts around the pill?
So, yeah, many women are intolerant to the synthetic progestin, which is used in a lot of the contraception, like the mini pill. So, yeah, you know, there can be, in fact, the pill actually has like higher doses of estrogen than what HRT. And again, if you get the body identical HRT, it's much more natural than what we use for contraception. So there can be, you know, I don't want to sit here and like turn people off going on contraception, because obviously it has its place, and some of the contraceptions can be used with other women's health medical conditions like endometriosis and things like that. But I think definitely, you know, for some women, yes, even the pill can cause sort of depression. You know, there are quite a number of side effects that the synthetic sort of hormones can cause.
So I think, you know, whatever you take, you need to listen to your body.
And again, it's important just to make sure that you know, that we're all individual. So every case is individual. Some, you know, even the oral HRT pill has its place for certain women, you know, because it is still minimal risks of clots if you haven't got a medical history of it. So it's important just to know that it's trying to have a doctor or a health professional that you can have that conversation with, of your individual case of what's right for you, because HRT in itself is very trial and error. There's no one fits all. Our skin is different, so we will absorb even the patches, gels, sprays, we will absorb them differently. And also the patches have different brands, so they have different ingredients. So we're often not told that if our skin has reacted to one patch, actually if you take a different brand that's got different ingredients in the glue, you might be able to have that brand. So it's very, very trial and error. It's not an easy thing to prescribe, because, and even one important thing I will end on, even with the natural things like black cohosh, and all the other sort of what we call natural, just be careful that yes, they have phytoestrogen in them, which is plant-based, sort of another type of estrogen. There are side effects that you need to be aware of as well, that they may affect. Some of the natural ones can affect anticoagulants, because they have a blood thinning effect. So it's just important to know, just because they're natural doesn't mean that they're safe for you. So you still need to do your research even on the natural products.
Yes, yes. Check the ingredients very closely. Fiona says she likes Pilates as well, and she gets her patients to do Pilates, which is wonderful. And what's been really cool on this show, and we are about to wrap up soon, we've had a lot of guys come on, which is really great. We've got Zain
Brilliant.
Ali here. We've got Dinesh Singh here. He says he loves the show from India. Love and regards from India. Hello, Dinesh. Good to see you. We've got a few guys on Instagram as well. We've got Mal McLean there. We've got the solopreneur, Feel Good Wellness. Liz Cliff, got some lovely females here too. Liz, good to see you. Angela Mosty, a whole lot of people have joined us. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have joined us live or watching the replay, let us know what is something you've learned from this show. What's something you've got out of this, or maybe something you're going to research a little bit more moving forward after this show. And Fiona, if you could, Michelle, if you could just let us know about the book that you have and how people can get a copy of that.
Yeah, so it's called You, Me, Conquering Perimenopause and Menopause. So it's on Amazon, or it's on my website. You can just, on panaceapause.co.uk, you can just literally, there's a button where you can just send you straight to Amazon. But yeah, it's had some really, really good feedback about how women that have been just even from a weight perspective, where they've been struggling and they've now found that they've suddenly started to lose weight. So it's but ultimately, yeah, it just helps with so many of the symptoms that I've been really, and also with the recipes that I've made it so that they're easy ingredients. Often when you Google keto, they are the most obscure ingredients that either aren't available in the UK or they're really expensive on Amazon. So I've made sure all the recipes are easy to follow, and you can get in your normal supermarkets as well.
Oh, wonderful. Love that. And for those who are tuning in on the podcast following this, Panaceapause is spelled PANACEAPAUSE.co.uk. All right, so check that out there. That sounds amazing. And do you have a favorite quote or motto that you live by, Michelle, that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so women are often not very good at looking after themselves. We're great at looking after everybody else. And I often say you can't give from an empty cup, because
yes,
we're all about giving, but if we're using up all of our own resources and our energy, and we're just going to burn ourselves out. So I always say you can't give from an empty cup. You must fill yourself up first before you can give to others.
I love that, Michelle. And if people want to find out more about your program, they can go to that website as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so the website, so it's got, as I say, about me, what I do. I do offer one-to-one sessions as well. And these workshops and sessions can be done either by Zoom, or I do travel around the country as well. So, because I like that more personal, and my workshop's quite interactive, so it's a lot easier to do in person as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today, Michelle. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. And my beautiful co-host, where can people connect with you?
Best to go to my website, bebettercoaching.org. There's all the links to my books, programs, offers, and everything. And I just wanted to add, I loved as well how many men were tuning in today. I was seeing that on our Insta Live, for example, Jason Brienprix, I think a French name, and many more, some you mentioned. And this is something that I was that was popping to my mind when you two were mentioning the relationships and how they get affected when a woman is going through her perimenopause or her menopause. It's a beautiful idea that came to my mind, to get your book and give it to their spouse or wife or girlfriend as a present when she starts developing such symptoms, rather than getting into fights or bullying her or making fun of her hot flushes, whatever it is. Go into that topic together, support your woman, because as we all know, women are like good wine. The older they get, the better they get, and how beautiful it is to age together, no? And going through these changes together. And I think my quote of the day is, I changed my mind just now. I'm going to go with my beloved David Bowie. May he rest in peace. Changes. And embrace them. Embrace the changes and go through them together, hand in hand.
Yeah, I love that. And for those who are on the podcast, that is Be Better Coaching, BE Better, BETTER Coaching, COACHING.org/links. You'll see all of Kerstin's links there. I absolutely love that. I'm a big David Bowie fan. He's a fellow Capricorn like myself. So love David Bowie. Very, very cool. And for those who want to connect with me, you'll find all my links at linktr.ee/Aldwyn. That's linktr.ee/Aldwyn, spelled ALDWYN. And yes, it is a Welsh name, although I don't have Welsh blood. It's a Celtic name. Over your way, Michelle. It's from over that side of the world. You can book a call on my calendar link there. We have the Global Good News Challenge. Every single month is a free challenge where you can practice sharing gratitude and good news. The whole idea is to lift the energy on the planet, help to decrease depression and suicide rates, which can also, I'm sure people can get very depressed sometimes around perimenopause. So that could be a great thing for you to get into the practice of gratitude, to do things like meditate and Pilates and yoga, as we mentioned here, and maybe some HIIT training for those who are up for a bit more intensity. And also we have a mass media mastery program that we do where we teach people and show them how they can package up their genius and get it out to the masses as well. So reach out, PM me, or book a call on my calendar link if you want to find out more about getting yourself out there to be seen, heard, and known. And a quote I will share today is by Margaret Mead. It's a small group of thoughtful people can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. A small group of thoughtful people. And the people who've been tuning in today, thank you so much. You are our small group of thoughtful people today. And no doubt there'll be many more that will be tuning in later. Thank you, Michelle, for being our guest. Kerstin, amazing as always. Any final words from either of you before we wrap up today?
I was gonna let you go, Michelle. Yeah, I just encourage all women watching, listening. Remind yourself it is a very natural thing. This is something that 50% of the population of this planet is sharing. There's no need for any blame or shame, and we're in this together. Reach out, get help, team up, join up. Reach out to Michelle or Aldwyn or myself. There's so many experts who have gone through this, who have amazing tools that can help you, and you don't have to go through anything by yourself.
Definitely. I think you've nailed it. That's exactly what.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
No woman needs to suffer. There's lots out there that can help.
100%. Amen to that, Michelle.
Yeah, I love that. And I just found some other really cool quotes. Menopause is not the end, it's a new beginning. Definitely. And also menopause is like a finely aged wine. It gets better with time. Gets better with time. So hang in there. The best is yet to come, as they say. And enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride.
And like Fiona is giving one last comment here in the chat. Embrace every stage of life with joy and purpose. And that's it. When you have your life purpose, then you can even embrace the challenges and the so-called suffering, because you make it through. And then maybe later on, you might be sharing how you made it through. And that's a beautiful thing about getting older, really. When you start sharing your wisdom, your health, your wealth, and your wisdom, then you become even more valuable with every age, with every year that you add onto your calendar, no?
Yes.
Michelle, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank
And
you.
lots of success with your book and your courses. And yes, thank you to both of you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And Fiona says, beautiful ladies, thank you all for an interesting and informative session. Thank you so much, Fiona, and everyone else who's tuned in live. Let us know, what did you get in the comments? If you've enjoyed this, share the love, share it out to people, connect with us on Facebook and our podcast outlets as well. Sending you much gratitude and love, and we'll be back same time next week. So tune in then. We'll have another exciting guest for you. And here's to an extraordinary day or night wherever you are in the world. We'll see you again next time. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks, Michelle.